Alright, so if you've been following along with the videos, you know we've got the shell completed, we've done the outside finishes, and last week we did the wiring. So this week we'll put ceiling papers and wallpapers in both floors. Stay tuned and see how we do that part. Alright, let's talk about what we need to start. We're going to start with the ceilings. We'll do both ceilings and then we'll do the walls. So we need paper for the ceiling. Now you've got several options. What I usually use is this paper. It comes in a great big like 20 by 24, 25, 26 inch sheets. It's huge. I think they use it for like pencil drawings and for watercolors. You get it on the same aisle in Michael's. At least at my two Michaels that I go to, it's on the same aisle as the sketchbooks. I can also get this at the paper store. I've got a store that just carries paper and they carry this. It's about $2 a sheet, by the way, so it's not too bad. You can also buy, if you have a miniature store, you can get regular ceiling paper made for dollhouses. That's nice too. You need a ruler. You need something to cut your paper with. I use my straight edge and a straight edge and a craft knife on one of those self-healing mats. I don't have room to show you how to do that right now. That would take up a lot of room. You also will need some scissors to cut the corners. You'll need glue. And what I use for glue, I use Yes Paste. This is really thick. It's, where's the camera? It's a bookbinding glue. It's made for paper. It's acid free. It's low moisture so it won't buckle your paper. And you have to spread it with a spreader. And one of these jars, this is a pint. It retails for about $10, which is kind of expensive, but wait until Michael's carries it, at least here Michael's carries it. Wait until they have a 40% off coupon. That's what I do, and then it's $6, and it goes a long ways. And it keeps, as long as you put the lid on, it keeps for quite a while. I've tried other glues that have been recommended to me for dollhouse wallpaper, and I always go back to this. This, for me, works the best. And you need something to spread it with. I use a fat craft stick. And you'll need, as always, wet wipes, because you want to get that glue off your fingers before you do anything else. So let's move our building up. I've pre-cut my paper to fit the ceiling on the top floor. I always set my building upside down to do the ceilings so that I can work. Even on my really big Harrison, I got help and we turned the house upside down to do this. I cut the paper about 1 inch bigger than my ceiling so that it will fold, and I've kind of creased it. And then I'm using the creases to mark. I cut the corners off. Let me set the house down and get another sheet of freezer paper so I don't get glue on my surface. And normally I would have this operation set up next to where I'm working, but because of the camera, I'm going to try and work back and forth. So we're going to take the glue and we're going to spread it. Spread it all the way off the edges. This is why you work on freezer paper. When this freezer paper gets dirty, throw it away, because you don't want this glue getting on the front of your paper. Let me see it. And I'm getting as thin of a coat of this glue as I can, this paste. And it really is a paste. It's very thick. And I'm getting it, you know, my fingers are getting really sticky. So I'm going to wipe my hands before I touch anything else. And you want to go off the edges of your paper so that you make sure you've covered all the way to the edges. Because if you don't have it all the way to the edges, your corners or your edges will stick up. And you want it all the way, the whole surface coated. Kind of like putting a really thin coat of frosting on a cake. And I've used lots of different glues over the years, and I always end up back with Yes Glue because it works. It works better even than the regular dollhouse wallpaper paste, in my opinion, because it's thicker and it doesn't make your paper buckle as much. Alright, now we have a nice coat of that. I'm going to wipe my hands off so I don't get glue all over. Move this, bring the house back. All the way back to the corner. Come on, cooperate with me. And I'll trim this here where it's sticking down over the windows, obviously, after the paste dries. Too far there, it's my ceiling. But that's really all there is to it, and then we just let it dry. If you start seeing little bubbles, get another jumbo stick. And just work the bubbles out. This paper is relatively thick. And use your stick to really push it down in those corners. Alright, so now that needs to dry, and I'm going to do the other ceiling the exact same way, and then I'll be back. Alright, so the ceiling papers are in and trimmed, and everything's ready to go. So now it's time to start wallpaper. And the windows in this dollhouse are done a little differently in this building. The mullions, those are the little bars here that divide the windows up. Those are in place on the wall of the dollhouse rather than being put in later separately as part of the windows. So I need to make a pattern. Normally, if this was just an opening, I would just cut a strip of wallpaper. Oh, by the way, we always start with the wall that you look straight at when you look at your dollhouse, when you look in the open wall. Normally, I would cut a strip of wallpaper the height of this wall and long enough to wrap around the two corners, and then I would glue it in, and when the glue was dry I would cut out the window. Well, since this wall, these windows on this one have the mullions, we have to cut the paper to fit around those windows, because I can't cut it off later. I'd have paper stuck to the insides of the windows. So I'm going to show you how I make a pattern. I actually made a pattern like this to do the ceiling on the first floor because I had to work around the recessed door to make the ceiling paper fit. And I use the same method whether I'm doing walls or ceilings or floors. Whenever I'm making a pattern to cut something, I make my pattern this way. It's something I picked up years ago in an article someplace on how to do dollhouse stuff. So let me get set up and I'll show you how we do this. Alright, so really all we need to make the pattern is some paper. I'm just using some printer paper from my computer. We need some clear tape. We need something to cut the paper with. And that's really about it. So what we start by doing is we start in a corner. Actually, I'm going to start in a corner. So we take a piece of paper, and what we are building is we're going to build our pattern. So I'm going to go to the corner, make sure that's going to fit, and I'm going to tape a couple of these will actually get taped to the walls of the dollhouse, and then the rest of them will be all taped together loosely. Alright, So that's our first piece. And now we need to have another piece of paper below that will that's smaller than our opening here, than our full piece. There, that'll fit. And I made sure that my corners, that my edges are straight, and that my corners that are going in the corner of the dollhouse wall, on the wall, are straight. The rest of the sides don't really matter. So now I fit this back in there, and I tape it, line it up on the edges really carefully, and tape it there. Now I need to cut a piece that will hopefully fit, yeah, and that's going to fill in there. Now I'm going to put some tape on this piece and tape it to those pieces that are already there. And what I need to do is I need to continue building my pattern all the way across my wall. Now I'm going to build the center section of our wall, of our pattern. And we're going to come back and do these strips in just a minute. I want to get a good place to anchor them to. Oh, that's too long. Yeah, that one goes there. And we need to be taping it to the wall from in various places because we need it to stick to the wall until we're ready to pull it out. Whoops, that went crooked. And this really is quicker when you've got the, when you can work, when you're not working around a camera. But I want you to be able to see what I'm doing too. And that makes it a little harder because I'm trying to stay out of your way. And this is a good place to use like scrap paper, maybe stuff that your printer spit out that you really didn't mean to print off. I know at our house our printer does that quite often. So this is a good place to use that. Pull it out of the recycling bin. Use it for this, and then when you're done you can always recycle it. Or, better yet, save this in your notebook so you've got a pattern if you ever need to do something else in your dollhouse. Okay. Now, let's see, I measured, it looked like that was about a 1/2 inch. Let's see if my paper I cut. That sticks up a little too far. Start trimming this paper down. There, now it fits below the window, and I'm checking from the outside that it's not showing in my window. I'll tape that in. And this will kind of make those two pieces of pattern become one. Now, let's see if we can cut a piece for above the window. Yep. And try not to tape this to your ceiling paper though. It's okay to tape it to the bare wall, but don't tape it onto your ceiling paper because that will leave a mark. So now let's make sure that we don't see paper. Okay, and I can hold my window in and I don't see paper, so that side is fine. I'm going to turn the camera off, I'm going to finish this pattern, and then I'll show you how it looks when it's all done. Alright, so now I have the pattern all taped together, And I'm not worried about, on this particular one, about the top edge and the bottom edge as much as just making sure the windows are right. So now I very carefully need to peel this away from the wall and be gentle because this is not taped very well yet. We're going to reinforce that tape here in just a second. And it's a really good idea to write the word W on that side that was against the wall, because you don't want to lose track of which side that was. So I'm on the back side. I'm going to, whoops, you don't want to see me, you want to see what I'm doing. I am going to tape this together in a couple of places, and I'm kind of taping over the tape for the most part. And now we have a pattern. So we also need to mark top and bottom. Now I need my paper that I'm going to use. And I'm using another one of these big sheets of paper. And I know I need to set this over a bit. And I'm going to set the top edge there. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I've cut the strip, and now I need to very carefully cut my windows. And this, since it's going to be covered up, I don't need a straight edge. I'm just cutting it. Normally, I'm a stickler for always using a straight edge when cutting, but we're cheating here. And it doesn't have to be, the edges don't have to be perfectly straight where they're being covered up, because you're going to have stuff covering. Like this line is a little crooked, and that's okay, because the window frame will cover it, and that's why we checked. Barely score that edge. Oops. And just lightly score this edge. All right. Now. And the reason I chose this paper for my wallpaper is because my peak on my sidewalls is higher than the 12 by 12 scrapbook paper. So I wanted something I could get the height I need for those peaks without having to piece my paper. And besides that, just having just what look like painted walls up here work really well for what the top floor is going to be. Alright, let's move the dollhouse back and see how we did. Alright. That fits. And that fits. Oops, I shifted. Okay, it's going to fit just the way I want it to, so I will apply the paste to it and I'll be back in a second. Alright, so now I have the wallpaper paste on my wallpaper. Now the biggest secret now is to make sure that I don't get the wallpaper paste up on the ceiling paper while I'm applying the wall paper. And you've got a little bit, this stuff will slide around a little bit for you, so it's okay. And there we go. We have the first sheet, the first piece of wallpaper in. Now I need to make patterns for the two side walls and put the wallpaper on those, and I'll be back. All right, so now that the top floor is completely wallpapered, I'm not really concerned about the floor edge and this edge, because I will be putting some wood trim in those areas if I'm not happy, especially at the floor. So as soon as this level dries, I will move on down and wallpaper the bottom floor, and I'll show you a few tricks there too. Alright, so now both floors are completely wallpapered. As soon as this all sets up, I've decided to install the windows throughout, the inside window trim throughout, before I start putting the electrical lights in, because I'm afraid, as tight as the quarters are down here, trying to get these windows in, I could bump my ceiling lights. So I'll be back in just a few minutes, and when this is all dry, and we will put those windows in. Alright, I have the wallpaper all in, and I actually decided to put in my windows at this point because I'm afraid when we start working on the bottom floor, especially because this is very, very tight, I don't want to knock my light fixtures off my ceiling. So let me show you. I've got one more window to put in. Let me reset the camera and the building, and I'll show you how I did it. Alright, so here's our last window. And the wallpaper glue is all dried. It makes it much easier. And I've cut the plastic so it's a little smaller than the window frame. And now I'm going to glue it with just a little super glue. So dot in each corner. Put my window on. And kind of press it down. Now be careful you don't glue yourself to anything when you're working with super glue. And always have nail polish remover, the kind with acetone in it, when you're working with super glue, because it's really easy to glue yourself to everything. Now give that a second to set up, and then run a bead of fast grab tacky all the way around. Now make sure when you cut your window plastic that it's smaller than the wooden frame, because you want this glue to go on the wood too. It can go on the plastic, but you want it to be on the wood so it actually makes contact with your building. And some glue might ooze out. That's okay. We'll mop it up here. We just push this down. And that's why I'm using the fast grab tacky, because it dries clear. So if I don't get it all, it's not going to make that big a deal. It'll dry clear. It won't show much, and I can clean it up. Now I'm going to turn my building over and take a quick look. Yep, everything's lined up. So that's all there is to this. So we're wallpapered. Our inside window trim is on, and our windows are installed. Next week, we're going to put the electric lights in both floors. I'll talk to you then. Bye.